and welcome Lee.
Thank you, Kenny.
Angels and demons. How about we start with angels? And I'm thinking of one thing in particular. I wonder if you'll pick up a couple of angels that showed up when you opened your eyes.
Yeah. Well, actually,
oh, sorry. So, I was asking Lee to tell us about a couple of angels that showed up one day when he opened his eyes.
Yeah. So, I'll tell you a little bit about what happened before then. In 2006, I was diagnosed with bone cancer, chondrosarcoma, and it was an extremely rare condition in an even rarer location. The bone tumor was running along the bone at the palate, the upper palate there, and it was actually pushing my left eye out of the socket. I was waking up in the morning and realizing that my left eye was bigger than my right, and over a few years realizing that I was unable to breathe out of one side of my nose. So this tumor had been there for years, and they said that in order to save my life they would have to perform radical surgery and completely remove the roof of my mouth, all the gums, all the teeth, and restructure it completely with bone and skin from my leg. So they actually took my face off from here. They performed a partial facial levitation, they call it, and sewed it back on, obviously. Took bone and skin from my leg and restructured it. I was being fed through a tube in my stomach, and the rehabilitation, was quite a long process. But I was in intensive care first. And when I came out of there to the medium place, between intensive care and the normal ward, I opened my eyes for the first time, and standing right next to my bed, just like two angels, were two people that were to become involved in my aftercare. One was my speech therapist, and I think the other one was my dietitian. And as I opened my eyes in the NHS hospital, they said to me, "We want you to know that we are here and we are going to take very good care of you. We're going to look after you very well." It was just the most wonderful thing to hear. I have to say as well, I have had experiences with the angelic realm, and I don't talk about them very often because they are very, very difficult to convey in words. They're very sacred experiences. But these two people come very close to the angelic realm, in my view. Yeah.
Would you like to say anything at all about experiences from the angelic realm at all?
I tend not to talk about them very much, because when I do, I instantly feel deflated, as if I haven't put the message across about how magnificent they are, and they transcend any definition that I can find. All I can say is that it's the feeling of the most beautiful, exquisite love. And I feel very grateful, that I've had those experiences.
There was, if you don't mind me saying, one little incident. Sue's here. So, sorry, yeah, there you go. This is Sue, who you'll hear about. So Sue, Lee and I were in the car recording, so we're working on the Journey Home album. And we were driving along, and Lee kind of seemed to disappear for a few seconds while he was driving. Then he came back. And it was almost like instruction. What were you told?
Yeah, we were in the recording studio, and I knew there was a part missing from a song that I've written for Susan. And I've learned now to just let things come to me, rather than try hard to find the solution. And we were just driving the car on a break from the studio, and as we were driving, I literally heard the words in my ear, "Ulilian pipes." So we went back to the studio, and I said to the studio guy, "Is there such a thing as Ulilian pipes?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "I'm an expert in this field, of music."
Handy.
So, yeah. So, and he bought a very good sample of that, and so we used it on the album, you know. And
You'll hear it in a little while. But for me, I don't know about you lot, guidance, it comes in so many ways, and where I'm talked through too in so many ways. And I guess what I've had to learn is what is a sign and what is a temptation, and I guess follow our hearts. And even working together, where did that come from? But it's like very much following our hearts. And working on the Journey Home album, there are just heights of joy and love, but it also takes us down. Do you want to talk about some of the darker places and the demons?
Yeah. For many years before my surgery and even after, I had suffered with depression. Actually, I was living in almost constant terror. After almost every conversation I'd had with someone, or sending an email or dialogue, I'd worry that I'd said something wrong. I'd catastrophize everything. And this came from some traumatic experiences that I'd had in my childhood, and it was post-traumatic stress disorder. And I decided to study as a psychotherapist, basically specializing in psychoanalysis. And really, what was behind this was an attempt for me to understand myself. But of course, that was unconscious. And as part of my training as a psychotherapist, it was a requirement that I undergo my own psychoanalysis. And I'd done a few years of it before my training, but I had to go back into it now. So, to cut a very long story short, when I met this therapist for the first time, many things happened. One, I felt that we knew each other. Two, I was petrified that something awful was going to happen somehow with this therapist. And I didn't know where it was. It was interpreted as a transference experience from my early childhood that I was transferring onto my therapist, the great fears that I had and relating to the person that initially caused me the trauma. So through my 5.5 years of working with this person, that feeling of terror never left me. But it was an intense, profound relationship. And I learned a great deal about myself through it. 5.5 years into the relationship, the psychotherapist divulged information about himself to me and hadn't told me anything about himself, as is the therapeutic framework for the 5.5 years. The information he told me went completely in contradiction to how I had experienced him and all the work that we've been doing for 5.5 years. And the terror, the fragmentation that I felt is really, I find that very difficult to convey as well. I was cancelling work because I was feeling as if I was getting out of control. What was happening was my unconscious was basically imploding on itself. And I experienced a fragmentation to such a degree that I was unable at times to even move. I'd be sitting in complete terror. I attempted to take my own life, and I actually took myself to a hospital at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I said, "Can you lock me up? Something terrible is happening to me. And I don't know what to do about it. I just want to be locked up in a hospital. I wanted containment." They said for me to go to the doctor the following day and send me home. That's when I attempted suicide. So the important thing, so I had a serious breakdown. I was eventually hospitalized for it. It was an experience that was just a complete fragmentation. And the rebuilding from there is an extraordinary experience. And I've learned I can criticize my ex-therapist in one way for the breach of the therapeutic frame. But the rebuilding from my breakdown actually caused all the terror that I've been living in all these years to flush away, and it flushed the earlier trauma away. And I remember saying to a friend, I don't know, I'm never going to heal from this. And she said, just try and find one beautiful thing a day to look at. And as the weeks and months progressed, I was starting to realize that I was noticing things in my environment, and that the terror that I'd lived with all these years was not with me anymore, and it's never returned. And that was 5.5 years ago. It was only the breakdown, I believe, that could have gotten through my defenses, because they were so strong and so high. So whilst people may appear to do outrageous things at times, and we look at some awful situations in the world and they're deeply, deeply troubling, but I have learned to know that there is a bigger picture. I know that completely now, and I just can't see it all, at the time. So that was, we say that,
the demonic side. And it's not just sitting with your own demons, it's breaking through. From what you're saying, it's like not only death and rebirth, but I remember you saying how now you're so available to listen to guidance and to do your work, and you've re-emerged totally differently. But one thing I'd like to say as well is, Lee talks about going to therapy. Lee went to therapy on crutches with a face that was so swollen. For 18 months it was too swollen to screw the new teeth in.
Yeah, my attachment to the therapy was humongous, so it was catastrophic in that sense when it all went wrong. But the breakdown really needed to happen, I think. Also, one of the amazing things that's happened since the breakdown is that I've become even more sensitive than I ever was before, even more intuitive. The effect that nature has on me now is really, really profound and tremendous. And it's been an unfolding process, and I think it'll always be like a domino, as I say, a domino effect, for the rest of my life, really, from that breakdown point. But the way that music is coming, particularly after meeting you and everything, is just amazing. I feel much more connected to the source now, since the breakdown. I think the breakdown took away the false self and left the core of me, the real Lee, intact. And the false parts of the personality just, kind of went away, I suppose, in a sense, with all that terror.
We'll be listening to some music quite soon. The music emotionally takes me to places where words couldn't take me. And the music that comes through now is absolutely phenomenal. Do you want to talk about, just in a snippet, how we met? Because that was another little kind of angelic guidance.
Yeah, that was amazing. My grandmother had died a couple of years ago, and I had this sense that she was wanting to communicate with me. So I decided to go and find a medium at the College of Psychic Studies. And I went on the computer to find a medium and came across Kenny's profile. And he's not a medium, but I felt this compulsion to go and see him, And I wasn't sure why. And I was a bit pissed off, actually. So I thought, it's a medium that I want a medium. And I was finding I was pushing this button, to see Kenny. So I went there and I thought, oh yeah, I would like to talk about this. There's something not quite happening in my life with the music and everything, and So, and then I discovered Ken used to work in the music industry. We did a brilliant voice dialogue, and after seeing Kenny, I went home and I started to hear this music in my head. I've always written music, but this is different music. I had ideas I'd never had before, and I came up with the idea to write a concept album called The Journey Home, which is about basically being born, breakdown, recovery, and celebration of life. So I'm listening now to the music that I'm hearing, and it can happen at the most inappropriate times, like when I'm very tired and I'm watching TV and there's this tune in my head, and I'm thinking, oh, please not now. I want to go to bed, and it's going on. So I have to go to the keyboard and record it onto the keyboard to take it into the studio, otherwise it won't leave me alone. So basically, the music you hear, it's just come through me. I do very little. So.
And it's guidance. It's also guidance. Do you have another demon that you'd like to bring to the table? Or are there any more angels? Have we done with demons yet? Because for me, I guess they can be one and the same. It's just a matter of recognizing for me that there's something I need to own. There's something I need to work through, rather than my fear, my past, my unfinished business, my disconnected parts owning me. It's like, well, I need to bring it along. The man in me needs to take care of that part, take care of the child in me, take care of whatever needs, and meet the world and let life guide me, I guess. So any more demons brewing that you can think of while we've gone?
We haven't got long enough, actually.
We've got 5 minutes before music.
No.
How's that?
Well, actually, there have been very deeply traumatic experiences in my life, and very, very beautiful ones. And as I said, with people and the metaphysical realm, these polarities have been something that I've really experienced in my life, and I know them to be a reality. I think really, in the album The Journey Home, I've tried to capture both of these kinds of experiences. And also the message that I really wanted to get through at the end of the album is that there are so many illusions around us, especially now. You can get so upset at things that we're seeing on the news, and these are deeply horrifying things, but I never thought that when the breakdown was happening, to me it was absolutely the end. I thought I would recover perhaps from the cancer, but I didn't think I was going to recover from the breakdown. But it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. And I keep that in my head when I see something that I find, that brings tears to my eyes. I think, Lee, you don't know it all. There's a bigger picture yet,
Wonderful.
There's, I'm thinking about the first track of the album and how the album starts. Let's go back to Angels. Tell us about the first track and how it starts.
Yeah, so I wanted to start the album really with something very beautiful and innocent that I'm very intrigued by, and that is how some children can see their guardian angels, And so the album starts with the voice of a child saying, "I can see you." And the guardian angel sings to the child and says, "You can see me now, and pretty soon you won't be able to see me, but I'm going to be with you all through your life." The guardian angel knows everything this child is going to experience. And so the album starts with this beautiful exchange, the innocence of the child and the angel coming back and having this really lovely dialogue, between them. And the angel pops up again in the album in different times, And during the breakdown, which is on the album, the guardian angel comes back in and tries to, get through there. Yeah.
In a nutshell, could you tell us what the Journey Home album is about?
Yeah, it's about being born into the world, growing up. A lot of it is about my childhood. So there's songs in there about growing up in South Wales, and about going off the rails and having the breakdown, and then the transformation that occurs after it. And then in the album, there's also a celebration of relationships, and this is something that I learned from my breakdown. My wonderful friend Susan was there helping me through that as well. And the power that we have to really make a difference in each other's lives, can't be overstated. And the album is really a celebration of our relationships and what we can do together in our lives to really make a big difference.
So are you giving everyone here permission to be an earthbound angel?
Absolutely.
Is anyone not willing to play that role? So the good news for me, because Lee and I worked together twice, and then he booked me a third time, and the way that Lee did his work and transformed himself was absolutely amazing. And he booked me a third time, and I thought, what's going on? So halfway through the session, he said to me, would you be my manager? And the last thing on my mind is taking anything else on. I'm so busy with work, everything's just dandy, and it's like, my face said yes. The rest of me, what? But it is simply following the signs. And it appeared, I felt it, there was nothing to think about. And I realised that I was also brought up in Wales after I'm an ex-refugee from Uganda, and the Secret Service were trying to kill us all, very dramatic, blah, blah, blah. And I learnt after all the survival that I've been through that if I try and think my way out of things, if I try and work it out, I'm probably not breathing, I'm in my head and I'm disconnected from life. And I've always come to one conclusion: thinking things through is for me trying to be in control and fix things, everything, be in control. It's the only safe way. And I realised the only way I can do that, the only sensible answer, the bottom line, is suicide. So I learnt to not think so much, and as soon as I find myself lost in space, I don't even think to the end of the sentence anymore. I take a deep breath in and I think, thank you for reminding me who I used to be, and that's in the past. And as I breathe out, I take part in life. There's space for life to meet me. So, any final words before we go into music?
No, nothing really I can think of. I'm just, no, I'm really eager to share, the snippets from the album with you. It's just fantastic to be working with Kenny, and I want to say a big thank you for having us here today. I hope you like the music. Thank you very much.
So what we haven't said, I guess what everyone should be saying is, buy CDs and sign up to newsletters and all that social media shenanigans, because we'd probably get in trouble with each other if we don't say that kind of thing. We've got a... Oh, is that you still?
Yes.
Oh, check out the logo. How cool is that? We've got an album called Winspiraiton, and the money from
this is
that...
on there.
Yes, this is on there, and so are a couple of the other tracks. The money from that album is going towards producing the Journey Home album. One of the tracks, for example, has a male voice choir. Another one has Lee's 84-year-old grandmother, 86-year-old grandmother. We filmed in Wales, saying, "What are you doing in Mars, Lee?"
On Mars.
On Mars. Come home to the valleys and have a nice cup of tea with me. So, all these things cost a lot of money to get right. So this album is to raise money for the Journey Home album, which is the real message that Lee is here to pass on to the world in my view. So cards and CDs and everything in the back. And thank you so much for sharing, for me, emotional moments here with us today.
Thank you.